Wedding photos on the grounds of one of the former Saigon's most iconic buildings. This is Reunification Palace, the former presidential palace of the former nation of South Vietnam, whose puppet regime under American dominance was put out of its misery on April 30th, 1975. The day these tanks crashed through the front gates to mark the fall of Saigon and the end of a long, nasty, debatable war.
For students of the Vietnam War, walking the corridors of this iconic building is an up-close and personal look at a place of great drama during 13 years when the former South Vietnam was little more than a puppet regime under Washington's control. If this building has a quintessential 1960s look about it, that's because it was built in 1962 on the order of then South Vietnamese President Ngo Dinh Diem. But Diem didn't live to see its completion. He was assassinated during a coup with CIA backing during the Kennedy administration, when it was thought erroneously that the removal of his corrupt regime provided the best chance for South Vietnam to survive the onslaught from North Vietnam under Ho Chi Minh.
This is like the map room, you see on the wall about the map.
Just through the doorway from the president's office, a nerve center of war operations, the map room with its bank of dedicated phone lines.
I'm here just outside the palace's formal dining hall, where state dinners were routinely held here. In fact, up until just a few weeks before the fall of this palace, the fall of the South Vietnamese government, a state dinner was held here for visiting U.S. congressmen coming to assess the progress in the war. This is, of course, the cabinet room of the former South Vietnamese government. The cabinet turned over completely the day before the surrender of Saigon. The hastily and newly appointed cabinet members were in the process of being formally presented at 10 o'clock in the morning on April 30th, when a broadcast was heard over the radio from the president announcing the cessation of hostilities and the surrender of Saigon. For a place to absorb the impact of what Americans call the Vietnam War and the Vietnamese call the American War, there's hardly a better place than where I am now, at the Remnants Museum. It's one of Ho Chi Minh City's most popular museums, drawing 500,000 people a year from around the world. The museum was originally located in the old United States Information Agency building, and perhaps understandably, directly after the war, it had a, shall we say, a distinctly angry title. It was the exhibition house for U.S. and puppet crimes. Puppet, of course, being the South Vietnamese government. But as relations normalized between the U.S. and Vietnam in the 1990s, the name was changed to something less judgmental. By definition, any war museum worth its salt is an anti-war museum. And this one excels in its mission to illustrate the inhumanity of warfare. And so if you're on board with that simple concept, you can appreciate this place with its depiction of the horrors that befell this country. And to get the most from it, I would say best try to leave the propaganda at home, whether Vietnamese or American. I'm here at another location that those who have studied the Vietnam War, or those who are old enough to remember it, will recall, and that is the Rex Hotel behind me. The Rex was the site of a daily press briefing given at the rooftop bar by American generals and others of the military brass that came to be called derisively the 5 o'clock follies, because the information they conveyed about how the war was going bore no resemblance to the truth. And so it is today. The sign at the top of the bar, beneath it, says in quotes, 5 o'clock follies. This gorgeous French colonial building is still known as Saigon City Hall, even though it hasn't been a quote-unquote city hall since 1975. Since then, it has fulfilled a triple purpose, housing the Ho Chi Minh's People's Committee, the People's Council, and the People's Court. I'm just passing a building which is totally nondescript. It's the so-called Catanat Post, which during the French colonization, on up until when the French exited in 1954, it was used as a detention center for political prisoners, which is to say resistors of the French, and where alleged acts of torture frequently were performed here. After the French left, and during the period of the government of South Vietnam under the auspices of the United States, it also was used as a place of detention and torture. Today, it is the city's Ministry of Culture and Public Information. Saigon's most impressive homage to Ho Chi Minh, his statue adorning one end of a vast and beautiful public plaza. It's positioned just beneath the windows of the Rex Hotel, where the generals once spun their yarns. History has a way of mocking those who fall on the wrong side of it. Of all the historically relevant places in Saigon related to the Vietnam War, there's one that's not on any tour, and that you have to do some digging even to know where to look. It's the apartment house across the street from where I'm standing, outside an H&M store in a shopping mall, the Vincom Center, an apartment building that used to be called the Pittman Apartments. As the U.S. military rushed to evacuate the last of its embassy personnel and thousands of so-called at-risk Vietnamese from the U.S. Embassy by helicopter before North Vietnamese forces captured Saigon in April 1975, the plan soon hit a snag. In the chaos, it was impossible for many people eligible for airlift to get to the embassy through the crowded streets. So it was hurriedly arranged to use the narrow roof of the building over my shoulder for airlift helicopters to land. It made a lot of sense to use this building because at the time, most of the Pittman's residents were either associated with the military, the embassy, or with the CIA. I come inside the building's lobby, and this is what would have happened, or what did happen, on those fateful 2 days, April 29th, April 30th, 1975. The people brought into this lobby would have been furtively brought into this lobby, and they would have been ushered to the corner of the lobby, to the single elevator that leads to the roof. I've asked to go up the elevator, but the security person who works here was not in tune with that idea.
Go up?
No?
No.
Why is that? Why can't I use the elevator?
No.
No? Just no?
Yeah. No.
Today there are still apartments here, and there are some businesses on the first 2 or 3 floors of this building. But in that day, in 1975, this lobby was not quiet. It was a scene of utter chaos as the very last people to be evacuated from Saigon were chosen, able to get on the very last helicopters, leaving. An iconic photo taken by a UPI photographer of a helicopter snatching desperate people from the roof of this building is one of the enduring images of the war's tragic end. And although some news reports misidentified this rooftop as that of the U.S. Embassy, it happened here on the roof of a building that is as nondescript today as it was then. And having gone through the tunnel to the back of the building, I'm going to show you the rooftop. And from this famous yet semi-unknown location, so many people's lives were changed forever. Those who were able to board to a life elsewhere. Those who weren't, to a life of hardship.
If you know how to stop the noise that's inside our heads, please don't stop telling us things, horrible things, about counting to 10 again and again, always the same. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you start